Now I request Mr. Srinath Biswas, Regional Sales Manager, Netskope, to come on stage and give his presentation. Over to you, Srinath.
So far, I think we had a good learning experience because it's a platform of knowledge sharing, and we really had 3 good sessions till now. So we heard a lot on what I could recall, like human firewall, right? The importance of human firewall. While there are a lot of stigma available, bad stigma available in security, defense in depth is actually expense in depth, right? Tools don't integrate. And then there is no exchanges of IOCs. There is alert fatigue. There are multiple such bad stigma associated with it. But really a good learning in terms of how should we define security as we move forward with the changing security landscape. So first of all, I'd like to thank for giving us an opportunity and a slot to speak about Netskope and how Netskope is delivering and addressing the pressing security concerns as organizations are seeing a drastic change in how people and data need to be secured. So in the next 15 minutes, honoring the time that has been given to us, please be with me. So we are going to understand how Netskope is helping organizations to protect their sensitive data as it flows through multiple different channels today, and also the users. We cannot neglect the users. Definitely they are an important part in the entire security domain. So how does Netskope helps organizations today to address those pressing concerns? So that is what we call security that is ready for anything. So if we look into the modern trends that is driving the change, hybrid work is here to stay, right? The percentage might vary. One organization would say that, okay, I have 30% of hybrid users who once in a week, maybe 2 days or 3 days they are coming to office, rest of the days they are working from home or anywhere else. But what user is demanding is definitely a faster, easier and a reliable user experience. Second is the cloud shift. There's no benefit of backhauling the traffic to the on-prem single enforcement point when the users are outside. Ideally, it should be closer. The enforcement point should be closer to the user. Because if we have to address the challenges associated with the cloud shift, the application landscape, the application risk that we see today, we need to have a holistic approach, a cloud native architecture that can help address those challenges. And lastly, the data, because it is everywhere, and as data is moving into multiple different channels, could be through web, SaaS, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or residing in your private data center, we need to have a clear visibility of the data, and then only we'll be able to control it. So something very interesting in the next 10-15 minutes, I would not be able to cover in depth, but something very exciting that I would like to talk about is we are the industry first layer 8 proxy solution. You might be thinking that where does the layer 8 come from? I know there are layer 7 layers in OSI model, right? There are 7 layers. Where does the layer 8 come from? So the layer 8 is basically the human element, the user who is interacting with the applications. We'll talk more about it as we move on. So if you refer to this slide, how the enterprise traffic patterns are changing because of this cloud transformation. Initially, if you go back 5-10 years, almost a significant amount of the internet traffic was web, and where we had some sort of proxy solution or URL filtering solution working in our data center or on the site to help us look into the HTTP or HTTPS transactions. But today, fast forward today, when we look into the enterprise internet traffic, it's not just the web. 60% of the web is appified. That means it has cloud services along with it. Now let us take a step back and understand how we are able to provide visibility into control into that traffic. Every URL has an app today, right? You get into facebook.com or you try to access through an app. The problem is when a user is interacting with an app, just relying on HTTP or HTTPS transaction does not help to decode the data moving inside it or the thread moving inside it, because the language of cloud is API and JSON. So traditional proxy solution would not be able to decode those transactions, and we create a big blind spot in the entire architecture. The second thing I would like to talk about is the SaaS applications. The increase in the SaaS applications. For an organization with typically 1,000 users, we have seen there are almost more than 2,400 plus SaaS applications. That might be surprising how it can be, because if we talk to anyone, they would say that I only have a couple of SaaS applications which are being managed or administered by IT. But when we do a risks assessment, we figured out that the organizations is having or connecting to more than 2,400 plus SaaS applications, out of which 97% falls under shadow IT. So let me give you an example. So we all have SaaS applications like Office 365 or Google Workspace, right? Right? You all use it, maybe Office 365 or Google. Now, your corporate instance of OneDrive is storing some sensitive data. As a user, I have the access to that sensitive data. I move the data to my personal storage application. An on-prem or a traditional proxy solution would not be able to identify it, because it does not understand that how the data has moved from one cloud apps to another. And that is where the problem occurs. And definitely 50% of the threads are cloud enabled. How we have seen the advancements of threads, how cloud is enabling or moving the threads inside the environment. And fourth one is the increase in the encrypted traffic. So how do we solve this problem? We cannot solve this problem just by having a siloed approach. This term is being used multiple times in the couple of sessions previously. So how do we solve this problem? To solve this problem, definitely we need an architectural approach. While we started the company way back in 2012, and we looked at those problems back then, while Gartner has termed it as a SASE, an offshoot of that is SSE, which is Security Service Edge, helps you to solve all of these problems associated with people and the data, no matter where they are. So first of all, if you see this slide, at the below side, you are able to see the users, the offices, the IoT devices, and then at the top, you are able to see the destinations. So basically, the Netskope being a cloud security company, we have the data centers all across the globe. We have 70 plus data centers, and the India footprint is 5. We have 5 data centers in India, and all these data centers are full compute data centers. So basically, Netskope SSE is the man in the middle. We intercept all those traffic going to these destinations, and basis of the security functions enabled into our cloud, we are able to identify and able to give them the visibility and control on that specific transactions. Second is, it's a cloud native platform, so it is easier to scale. And all these data centers, we call it New Edge, all these data centers are connected. And we have seen that while we enable security, there is a question about performance. So we are addressing that challenge with our peering relationship with the major cloud service providers. Each of our data centers, so this slide talks about the footprint of Netskope all across the globe. As I spoke about that, we have 70 plus data centers, and these are all full compute data centers. So as I said that if you can see this slide, that we have a data center in Calcutta that become operational this year. We are the first cybersecurity company, the cloud native company having a data center in Kolkata. So when the traffic originates from this place locally, it first hits the Kolkata data center, and all of the scanning happens right there. So if a user is trying to access Office 365, it does not have to go through the multiple hops. From there, it directly connects to the respective application. So that is the reason why we are able to give performance-based SLAs, and while we are enabling security, we are not compromising with the performance. But where do we start? Now we have all heard about SSE or the SASE. This is the most common question that we face today. So the first step to start in your SSE journey, because this is not a product. This is not a product that you deploy it and then it is done. There are phase-wise approach. So the first phase in the SSE journey, the common starting point is basically the next generation secure web gateway. So why we are calling it as a next generation secure web gateway? We have worked with multiple different proxy solutions. There are so many proxy solutions available. So is it just a marketing term, or there is real benefits that comes along with this solution? So as I spoke about the importance and the way traffic is changing and the web is becoming more appified, we have consolidated secure web gateway with something called CASB. Now CASB looks like a product, but it is all the same in terms of the modus operandi, in terms of understanding the cloud transaction. So we call it cloud inline. It is a forward proxy that not only helps you to decode the web transaction, but also the cloud transactions. We can tell you that what all instances of OneDrive is being accessed from your organization. Now once you have allowed OneDrive, there are multiple instances of OneDrive. Now if we don't understand, or we don't have the capability to understand the instances of the respective application, the managed application, will not be able to define security policy. As I gave the example of personal OneDrive versus corporate OneDrive. How do we differentiate them? How do I regulate the data movement between these two different instances? Because I don't have the visibility, first of all, to all those cloud storage applications or SaaS applications which does not have administration by the IT. So this solution, the next generation secure web gateway, helps you to go one step ahead with the cloud proxy solution in terms of decoding the cloud transactions, and also able to help you to understand the data movement from one cloud to another. And we do that using the zero trust principles, because zero trust is again not a product. So let me put some light on the risk, because we need to understand that what all risk we are able to address with this solution. So if you look into this slide, on the very right hand side, you are able to see CASB API. So there are two different modes of CASB. One is API based and other is inline based. So if we look at maybe 5 years back, CASB API started predominantly to look at data at rest. But that is more of an API integration with the managed clouds applications. Could be 5%, could be 10% of that. What about the larger 90% of the SaaS applications? Because we cannot have an API integration with all the applications. That is not possible back then. And then if you look at the left-hand side, we have the next generation firewall and the secure web gateway that is giving you the functionality of URL filtering or some proxy or some little DLP around it. So the gap that you are able to see is basically because of the 95% of the apps which are unmanaged, and the user-led, basically the user-led and the business-led applications where IT does not have a control around it. And we are trying to address this particular gap with the capability, with the inline capability to understand that traffic, to build contextual policies around it, and then able to control that traffic. I was talking about zero trust. It's not an easy thing, really complex, but we have simplified it with our solution because the secret sauce of the Netskope next generation secure gateway relies on the zero trust principle. So you're able to see that we can define the user trust, location trust, device trust, app trust. So app trust is basically the instance awareness.
And use of publish mic also.
Yeah. So you can look into the application trust. How do you define an application trust? There are so many applications around us. How do we define them? So our solution has a capability of having something called Cloud Confidence Index. We have a database of around 58,000 applications where we have a rating. So there are 400 plus engineers whose job is just to look at those applications, and basis of certain parameters, we have given a score. So when a user is accessing a certain application, we can understand what is that application and what is the score around it. For example, Dropbox. So let's say the Dropbox is having a low score and the user is trying to move a sensitive data from the corporate instance of OneDrive or SharePoint to Dropbox. I don't need a DLP policies or a content scanning to be done because I know that the application is risky. So coming back to the DLP point, when we have seen situations or when we talk to our customers, they talk about that DLP is really tough to manage. There are so many false positive, millions of alerts. So how do we solve that problem? This solution can help you solve that problem by enabling the zero trust principle so that much before we apply the the DLP scanning, we can set the business context around it. And basis of that business context, we can bring down the number of alerts, we can make it simplified so that it is easier for the customers to use. The second step for the SSE solution is Zero Trust Network Access. You might have heard about it. So this is basically the secure access to your private application, replacing the traditional VPN solution. We all understand, I don't have to repeat, the traditional VPN solutions that we have seen the utilization during the COVID period has increased the surface area of attack, right? Because once the user have an access through VPN, he is as good as in the LAN and he has the complete control, or he can move it laterally if his intention is not right and do multiple different suspicious things. So that problem we are able to address. Not only that particular problem around security, the architecture complexity, the performance, the user accessing the private applications. For an user, it does not matter where the application is residing. The user just will be seamlessly able to access the application. Attacker cannot identify where the application is residing, so he cannot launch an attack from outside. So I can talk more about it on the traffic flow. We can connect, we have a booth here. So just in the interest of time, I'm moving fast. So this solution helps you to address the secure access to the private application no matter where it is hosted. Again, DLP. DLP is something which is our core competency. As I spoke about it, we provide a holistic DLP solution across all the data channels that you can see today. And it is a unified policy engine. It's not that for each of the different data channel, there will be a separate policies, there is a separate engine around it. It is a unified engine in terms of enabling the DLP policies. So we have multiple different features basis of the requirements. For advanced use cases, specifically for the highly regulated industries or for healthcare and financial industries, we have seen some advanced use cases like they need document fingerprinting, optical character recognition, AI/ML based understanding of the sensitive data movement. All of those things can be done using this solution. And that's not all, because this is a cloud native platform that gives you multiple different security functions consolidated in one single platform approach. So we spoke about next generation proxy that includes DLP and that includes CASB and DLP. But this solution can offer you a lot of other features like cloud firewall, because not all transactions are HTTP or HTTPS. We also need to look into the non-web ports. So that functionality is part of it. Remote browser isolation, which is a pixel rendering technology in terms of identifying the risky websites and how do we isolate and make sure that there is no suspicious or the malware download on the local systems. So the difference that we make today is we are not a traditional proxy-based solution. We bring the risk identification and prioritization as the very first step before even talk about our product, with the visibility, context and the control that we have. And then we can look into the data protection side of it. Could be the data at rest, data in motion or data in use. And we do that without any performance drop because of the agility, because of our newest data center footprints all across the globe, and because of the platform that we have built. It is not a siloed approach. There are a lot of other third-party solutions that we can integrate with, because in the previous few sessions we heard about security can't be worked or looked into a siloed approach. So this solution can also integrate with the EDR solution, with the SIM solution, with the source solution, with the ticketing system, so that we can improve the efficacy and the feature richness. For example, there are a lot of EDR solutions available. We have bidirectional IOC exchange to improve the efficacy of the solution. And this is the last slide. So while I spoke about briefly on the Netskope solution, we have been the leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for SSC for the last 2 years. Prior to that, Gartner used to release the Magic Quadrant for the individual product. The last years, they started to release the SSC, because SSC is not a product, it is the consolidation of multiple security functions. And for the last 2 years, we have been in the leader segment. This year, we have been rated not only from an execution, but also from a vision standpoint as the highest category in Gartner report. Second, Gartner has also come with the critical capability report, which talks about the 4 use cases: secure web and cloud, threat protection, zero trust network access and DLP. In all these 4 specific use cases, again we have been rated highest across all the other vendors available in that report, specifically what you see in the leaders and challenges quadrant. I would like to interact with you to understand your specific concerns and how Netskope can able to work with the team and address those specific concerns around data and people. Thank you.
Thank you, Srinath Biswas, Regional Sales Manager, Netskope. Very interesting and thoughtful presentation. I request Sri Sanjay Kunadda, Joint Secretary Department of IT, who is also the program mentor of this conference, to come on stage and hand over the memento to Mr. Srinath Biswas. You can come here. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.